Talking Stanford football, getting you set for 2018 already with Don King from Last Word on College Football. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course, for the very best in college football coverage. Last year, 2017, bringing on 98 media guests. And awesome. I still remember all your names, Don. It's amazing.
That's impressive. Good for you, Mark.
I appreciate it. So I'm looking at Stanford's schedule for 2018.
Yeah.
And what always impresses me, talking about impressive, is with the likes of USC and Stanford in particular, with that Notre Dame series almost always in play for the Cardinal, always in play for USC, scheduling that typically other Power 5 opponent. For Stanford, the past couple of years, it's been what could be likened to a Power 5 opponent in San Diego State. Of course, that was one of the 5 losses on the road last year. Yep. This year, the Aztecs come calling on September 1st. So it's San Diego State, UC Davis, Notre Dame in September 29th on the road. The other thing that I like to look at, regardless of the conference, but specifically with the Pac-12, is you only miss 2 possible opponents. So who don't you play? Who do you miss? Well, it's kind of a light touch in regards to possibly 2 wins there with Colorado and Arizona. So it's a difficult schedule in the Pac-12.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard, and this is the dreaded even year schedule for Stanford, which means, okay, so great, you get UC Davis and San Diego State at home. That's fantastic, but you also get 5 of your conference games on the road in this year, including USC and Oregon, and Washington, and that's a little tough. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking the way the road lineup stacks up, given the road game at Notre Dame as well. The even year is it's a little bit more challenging, and I think there was a little bit of accommodation, by kind of sliding in a UC Davis as opposed to another Power 5 opponent for that 3rd out of conference game, but. We'll see. The difficulty in the Pac-12 is surviving the conference schedule, particularly the road portion of the conference schedule, and even years always stack up as particularly difficult with Stanford, including a very rapidly improving Cal team now on the road for the big game this year. So, yeah, it's the schedule is going to be challenging. Between the schedule and losses on the defense, personnel-wise, those are the 2 things that are concerning about the 2018.
Don, I believe we've addressed this before. There's much talk around Pac-12 circles about what do we need to do to not necessarily prop up the best teams, but give them a fair shake in regards to playing a difficult schedule, but playing it in such a way that it's bearable. You can breathe through it. You can have some soft spots to prepare for some of the tougher games, and you can recover from difficult Friday games to come back the next week and play at home. Have those measures actually been put in place, or is this still just rhetoric?
Yeah, a few of them actually have. So next year's schedule, for instance, won't have, this year, several of the top teams in the conference. I think it happened to USC. I know it happened to Washington, having to come to Stanford on a Friday night on a short week, and getting handled. Headed down the stretch within its own division. So that should not be happening next year. I understand that the schedule will accommodate not making anybody play on the road on a short week. And obviously it's disproportionately affected the teams at the top of the standings, which is the concern. You can't expose your best teams and expect to make the playoff, given kind of the current national climate. Now, the one thing that hasn't happened that you've heard me talk about before that I still clamor for, all of the Power 5 schools have got to standardize the number of in-conference games they're playing. They just have to. It's utterly unfair, for 2 of the conferences to be playing 9 conference games and then the other 3 to be playing 8, or I guess 3 now to be playing 9 and the other 2 to be playing 8. But either way, you can't have it. One team is playing, an in-division rival in the 3rd week in November before its big rivalry game, Thanksgiving weekend, and another conference that I'm not going to name out loud is playing Mercer, that same day, to get a bit of a breather, if you will, before it gets its big finale the following week. It's not fair.
Don, you're not going to
So
force me to go through the schedule and actually figure out who played Mercer, because I have no idea who you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. You have a hunch though. You know where I'm headed with it, and you know, to some degree, you can't blame people for playing within the rules the way the rules are and making it work for them. But conversely, I think it's something that they really ought to get together and standardize. It just makes good sense to me that everybody should be playing kind of according to the same principles and the same expectations prior to deciding who does and who does not get a chance to play for a national championship at the end of each season.